Look at these 5 graphs. What do they have in common? 2 things. First, they're all going up and to the right in exactly the same way. And second, every single one of those upticks is the result of a simple change to an old video. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 simple changes behind those graphs. And by the end, you'll have a set of tactics you can apply to the entire back catalogue of your channel. We'll go from the simplest, a 2-second fix you can make right now, to the one that takes the most work, but compounds for years. Hi, I'm Ed, co-founder of Humble&Brag, the full-stack YouTube agency for startups. Right, let's get into it. So the first lever is the title, and this is obviously the easiest thing to change. You just jump into the YouTube editor, you change the title, and it takes 2 seconds. So the question isn't how you do it, the question is what you actually have to change it to. But before we get to that, there's one thing you need to know about how YouTube actually serves videos to its viewers. So there are 2 main ways your video gets discovered on YouTube. The first is search, where someone is actively typing a query into the search bar, and the second is browse, where YouTube serves your video up to someone on their homepage or in their suggested video sidebar. And these 2 engines serve 2 very different viewers. You can imagine that the search viewer is on a mission. They've typed in a specific question and they want an answer. So the search title needs to be a clean match for the query that they typed. It needs to be direct, it needs to be descriptive, and it needs to be structured around the question that they asked. The browse viewer is in a completely different frame of mind. They've been shown your video alongside 10, 20 others that they didn't ask for. So the browse title has to spike curiosity and stand out in the feed. And that's where the Hormozi value equation works really well. So the value equation has 4 levers: the dream outcome, the perceived likelihood of achievement, the time delay, and the effort and sacrifice. And the strong browse title has at least 2 of those. So for example, 9 passive income ideas that make me 27K a week hits dream outcome and likelihood at the same time, while learn Spanish in 7 days hits dream outcome and the time delay. A good search title and a good browse title look completely different, so you have to pick a lane. And for old videos specifically, it's normally best to pick search. And the reason for that is that browse strongly rewards recency. So YouTube's homepage is heavily biased towards newer videos, which means that when you retitle an old video with a browse style hook, the best you can hope for is usually just a short spike, and often nothing happens at all. Search, on the other hand, behaves completely differently. A retitled old video that lands on a search query can keep compounding for months and sometimes years. And we've seen this consistently. When we retitle an old video around a clean how-to or a clear query, the views build slowly and then keep building. So when in doubt, for old videos, lean into search. So one last quick thing before we move on to the next section, and this is worth flagging because it's such an easy fix. So anything that dates your title is almost certainly working against you. The most obvious version of this is, for example, the best X in 2025. So you've just quietly told every viewer that your video is out of date, even if the content actually isn't. But it's not just years. Anything that ties the title to a specific moment in time will age the video faster than the content does. So make sure you remove any of that and just strip it out. Right, that's titles done. The next one takes a little bit longer than 2 seconds, but it's still pretty quick. The second lever is adding chapters or upgrading the chapters you've already got. So why do chapters matter? Chapters increase the search surface area of your video, and that matters across 3 surfaces at once. First, on YouTube itself, where chapters can be searched directly. Second, on Google, which pulls chapter timestamps into the main search results as key moments, which means 8 clean chapters can show up multiple times on the same Google results page. And thirdly, in AIO views, where the named chapters give the answer engines specific anchor points to cite. So if you don't have any chapters, your video is basically ranking for one thing, and that's the title. If you add 8 chapters, you've suddenly turned one searchable surface into 9, which works across 3 different platforms. So let's talk about how to do this properly, because the lazy version is just to chapter your video with whatever the segments happen to be called in your script. Introduction, section 1, section 2, conclusion. The better version is to look at the content and ask what secondary keywords are sitting inside it, then title the chapters around those. And this is where tools like Claude are genuinely useful because you can plug them into other tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush through a connector and have it surface the high volume, low difficulty keywords that are relevant to your video. And then you can have Claude do a fanning out exercise. So given the main topic, what are the related terms, what are the question formulations, and what are the long tail variations? Another great move is just scrutinizing that people always ask section in Google search. Those questions are sitting right there with proven search intent, and they often translate directly into chapter titles. And then you basically write the chapters around all of that. And question formulations work especially well because they typically match how people actually search. So that's the back end covered. The next one is about the front end and the thing that really earns the click in the first place. So the third lever is the thumbnail. And this one is a bit more work than the first two because it actually involves design, but the lift on the metrics can be really significant. So let me show you a slightly extreme example before I explain the principle. So this is something I see across almost every company channel I look at. The thumbnails are just overly branded. You see the logo in the corner, there's brand colors everywhere, and the brand typography that just doesn't stand out. And here you've got to think about what your video is actually competing against on YouTube's homepage, because you know yourself what it's like when you're scrolling. You've got thumbnails from your favorite creators with these crazy facial expressions on them. You've got thumbnails with swear words in the titles. You've got gaming clips and reaction videos and your favorite TV show. And every one of them has been engineered for one thing, which is to try and make you click. And let's be honest, a branded company thumbnail isn't really designed to win that fight. It's designed for simple recognition and consistency. So the viewer sees it, goes, that's an ad, basically, and scrolls on. So the native style thumbnails that creators use aren't winning because they look like the rest of the feed, they're winning because they're deploying the right tactics, they're engineered for attention. And the branded ones are engineered for brand. So you can see how that fight ends. And there's something else that happens if you update your thumbnails and you go in this direction of the native design. So let's say you update your thumbnail and you get a higher CTR. That's not the end of the story. There's actually a feedback loop happening underneath. So a higher CTR isn't just converting more of the impressions YouTube has already given you, it's also earning you more impressions. So if your video is performing well on CTR, and especially if the video is holding its watch time, YouTube is likely to start showing your video to more and more people. So a higher CTR feeds back into more impressions, which feeds back into more clicks. So it can really result in a kind of feedback loop. And if you've already done the work on the chapters and the title that we just talked about, then you might be entering that feedback loop with a higher baseline. So the lift on the thumbnail compounds with the lift on the chapters and the title. So next question, how do you actually choose which videos to update first? Well, you simply jump into YouTube Analytics, you sort your videos by impressions, and you look for the ones with high impressions and a comparatively low CTR. Even better, look at the CTR per traffic source. Sometimes a video is doing fine, but is just dying on browse, or the other way around. And that tells you something specific about what's wrong. And bear in mind that you don't really need to move the needle that much. 1 or 2 positions higher on a search results page can drive a lot more views all by itself. So that's the 3 easy fixes. The next one is a bigger piece of work, but it's the one I'd argue is the most important for company channels specifically. Lever 4, articles and schema. So the 4th lever is publishing an article version of every video on your website with the right schema markup underneath it. For company channels, this is probably the highest leverage move on the list, and it's the one most companies haven't really touched. And in the age of AI, it's also never been easier to do. So why do I say that this is such a high leverage thing for companies specifically? Well, one thing that we've noticed here at Humble&Brag is that Google search is growing as a source of YouTube views across all sorts of different channels. So not just search on YouTube specifically, but search on Google itself, where the videos show up in the main results in the video tab, and of course now inside the AI overviews. And it's not just growing as a percentage of external traffic, it's growing in absolute terms. So on some of the more established channels we work with, even ones that aren't posting that frequently anymore, Google search has overtaken browse features as the #1 source of views. So a view that comes from Google search is often more valuable than a view that comes through YouTube browse because it's also delivering a high intent visitor to the place where the conversion actually happens. So if you're running a YouTube channel for a business, you should definitely be optimizing for Google search visibility and not just YouTube search. So how do you actually do this? Well, every video that you make has a script or transcript or both, and you can consider that the raw material for your articles. So even if it was ad-libbed, even if it wasn't fully scripted, the transcript still carries your voice and your spiky point of view. And that's a perfect input for AI because what comes out the other side isn't AI slop, it's your thinking that's been restructured for the article format. And that distinction matters more than ever right now because Google and YouTube are both increasingly looking at which creators and which companies are producing new information versus which are copying or rephrasing what's already out there. So originality is a key factor in what gets surfaced. And your video, in your tone of voice, with your spiky take, is exactly that original input that keeps everything downstream original too. So if you've got the right setup, a project, a couple of skills, some context, you can turn one video into multiple articles. We here at Humble&Brag typically run 3 to 5 per video, and each article gets the video embedded in it. The schema markup underneath tells Google exactly what's in the video and where the key moments are. The article then ranks on Google, traffic comes to our site, visitors watch the embedded video, and it forms a beautiful flywheel. And the views you get on those embedded videos tend to be higher quality than views from your cold YouTube traffic, because the viewer has essentially self-selected. So your average watch time goes up, and that has its own knock-on effects on how the algorithm treats the rest of your channel. And this is exactly the play that's driven 12x growth on the Humble&Brag blog over the last 3 months. Okay, on to the last one. And this is the one that takes the longest to set up, but it's definitely the one that compounds the most. Lever 5, aligned content and playlists. So we just talked about building an ecosystem of articles around each video, and this one is about building an ecosystem of videos around each video. So here the idea is to plan new videos that are just explicitly aligned with the old ones. That could be a sequel, for example. So here's the next chapter in this series. It could be a remake, which often performs very well, especially if the original was made a year or 2 ago and the field has moved on. Or it could be a deeper dive. So you could say, I covered this at a high level, here's the technical version. So when you make an aligned video, the connection between the two can work on 2 levels. Implicitly, with YouTube's recommendation engine starting to surface the old video next to the new one, because viewers who watch one tend to watch the other, and explicitly, so you can reference the older video inside the new one. You can, for example, add end cards pointing at the aligned videos, and you can add them all into the same playlist. And with playlists, they're definitely one of the most underused tools on YouTube. They tell the algorithm that 2 or more videos belong together, they autoplay, which often extends session time, and that session time is what YouTube's algorithm rewards above almost anything else. So an aligned video plus a playlist isn't just a way to revive an old video, it's a way to start turning a pile of uploads into a structured library. So to wrap up, let's take a step back from those 5 tactics for a second. Most channels' back catalogs are doing a fraction of the work that they could be doing, just because nobody's paying attention to it. So the order I'd run these in is pretty much the order that I've just shown you. Titles first, because they're the easiest and quickest to change, then chapters, then thumbnails. And all 3 of those you can finish in a couple of afternoons, and you'll probably already see a pretty significant impact. The articles and schema layer takes a little bit longer to set up properly, but it keeps running for years. And the aligned content play is a strategic play that turns every new video into a way to revive old ones. And if you do all 5 of these things on your back catalogue, you'll see videos you'd written off as dead and buried start working again. If you want to know how to make your videos rank everywhere, on YouTube, on Google, and inside AI search, that's the next video on this channel. It's the new way to do YouTube SEO, and it's where all this is heading. I'll see you over there.